tutorial on drawing fantasy creatures in Affinity Designer, and I've called this one a Beast of Burden. We're designing an exotic fantasy creature. Well, it's not about straying too far from reality, as I mentioned here. If you look at nature, there's all sorts of beetles and insects and animals and birds and things that have wonderful shapes. And if you copy the outline of them, it gives your design something of a real world look about it. People will look at it and think, that's a vaguely familiar shape. But use restraint in your designs though. Almost believable is better than, well, that's totally unbelievable. Unless of course you're into wild fantasy, and that's exactly what you're trying to build. This is not an exercise, as I mentioned here, in teaching you to draw, but it's a guide to starting ideas, building on ideas that you have, and you're thinking to yourself when you first come across this designer program, what on earth can I do? Well, here's how you can work your way up to being a great graphic artist by starting simply. Now we're going to model a cargo character here, and it's modelled on an insect, and you'll see the insect in a moment that I used to start it with. You can start your sketch small. As I mentioned in a previous video, even post-it notes are big enough, 8 centimeters by 5 centimeters or 8 by 8. It's all you need. In this case though, I used 1024 by 1024 pixels. You rough in the basic shape. In this case it's well, roughly a camel-like beast of burden. It's actually an insect with a large hump back. Could it be based on a flea or a beetle? Who knows? In this design, the large hump allows this creature to carry heavy loads, hence it's a cargo character. Now you may be doing a comic, or you may have a design for a story that you're thinking of, and it's necessary for a beast of burden to have a broad back. Now it's interesting that in drawings like this, the small head gives it a benign personality. It's a big insect, or it's a big beast, but it's not fearsome. This is an unusual aspect of human reaction to animals of different sorts. Now if you're looking for design sources, Pinterest or image galleries provide a rich source of design ideas. You can trace over these, discard them. There's thousands of variations out there. The green beetle on the bottom is the one that I used in this exercise. And there it is. And you can see I've got it sitting up there. You plan your finished work ahead as much as you can. So you think to yourself, am I going to need room on this design for what I'm doing? Now I've got this one positioned slightly to the right because I plan on putting a small figure in front of the finished animal. Place it on an image layer and lock it so you can't accidentally move it. Now you can see on the right hand side there I've positioned it on a layer of its own and locked it. And it's a good idea to reduce the opacity because you're going to create a sketch overlay, and you can see there I've got a drawing layer above it. You can see that the image, or photo if you like, is placed on the image layer, and I've reduced the opacity to 20%. You do that of course in layer options. That's the 3 little dots. When you're in the layer panel, the 3 little dots on the top left take you to layer options, and you can reduce the opacity. Now when you go back to your layers, make sure that you select the drawing layer, because the drawing layer is where you're going to do your initial sketching. Don't accidentally leave it on the image layer. Now you can see there I've got 3 images there. I've started to sketch in the top one, and the colour wheel unfortunately is on the top of it. but that's alright. The lower one on the left hand side, you can faintly see the blue outline around the insect. And in the right hand panel, the insect has been hidden. The insect layer is hidden, and you can see it up there in the top right, and the drawing layer just has the blue sketch on it. And there we go. There's our drawing template. The image layer is hidden. The drawing template is sitting there ready for further development. Now you can see I've got the brush selected. It's pressure sensitized, and I'm using 100% opacity, and it's 30 pixels wide, the brush. Now do your sketch in blue, because it's an easy colour to spot amongst any other colours you might do. Redraw the beast. You can focus on its legs. You can enlarge the sketch, which will allow you to delineate the beast's harness and create an impossibly large payload in greater detail. Remember, unlike a piece of paper that ends up one size, on your iPad, for example, or your desktop, you can zoom in and zoom out. You can enlarge the thing as much as you like, or reduce it. Now, perspective lines aren't necessary in creature designs like this, because the construction lines for the load you will put on the animal's back will make the difference. Now, because it's going to have other additions to it, the perspective really doesn't matter. Now we've got a cargo harness on there. This is very rough sketching, and that's all you need to do at this stage, because remember, what I'm showing you is all you need to know, or all you need to do to get started, I should say. Now we're still on the drawing layer. Now I've got the beast driver sketched in there. He's leading the beast on a rope. We're still working with a pale blue brush, and the colour is very much reduced. Fine detail is not needed right now. Now we're up to step 3, where you start defining details. You can start inking in. Now you can see, if you look carefully there in the control bars down the left hand side of that image, I've started to use the pencil. Hold the pen gently to allow for slight line variation. It's still pressure sensitive. This prevents the drawing from looking too mechanical. Don't forget to use zoom in and zoom out. And of course, the brush is in black. Now we've got a new layer, the drawing layer, and you can see again we've got the image on the left, the image on the right, and the image on the bottom right. You can see the black lines where I've started to ink in the primary outline. And there's an enlarged view of it. Finish drawing the details, and you suggest the hardness or softness of the material by changing the lines you use. You can see those lines there are quite definite and quite strong. They're not sketched in like the other ones. But final line work can be hard and quick, or soft and organic. Now notice the group drawing layers. You can see I've got another layer there. There's a drawing layer that's got a group in it. There's the image layer, which is locked, but the top layer is the line detail. That's a new layer, and you can see each of the lines I've put in are grouped below it. Make sure you have that line layer selected, and then all your additions will group below that line. This is very important for finding your way back to where you're working. Don't be afraid to put extra layers in there. Now, you can be erasing the blue material at this stage and removing sketch lines. You can erase the blue pencil by hiding that layer. That's very simple, just hide the layer. You can make sure the proportions and details are delineated properly. If you find a minor error, correct it with more pen work. Bigger errors will have to be corrected before proceeding, and you can delete lines at this stage if you want to. Now you'll see there, I've got the top tool in the left hand side selected. I've got the line that I accidentally put in there, and it's got a red circle around it, and because it's in select mode, by selecting that line it highlights it in the list of lines, in the list of layers. So you can either hide that layer, which will hide that accidental line, or you can delete that layer altogether. Now for a stray line like that, I prefer just to delete the layer because it makes no difference. I don't want that line there at all. Now there's our basic shape. We have 3 sets of group layers: the line detail, the drawing layer, and the image layer. Both the base layers have been hidden, the blue layer and the image layer. And this is now a basic shape that you can use to proceed with the rest of your drawing. Feet, person, load, and so on. You can add detail to this. Now, adding tone. You use grey brushes for this. Now, over the right hand side I've got inks, but there's a large number of options in that section. There's inks, acrylic, oils. I would strongly suggest that you use a separate panel, open a separate document and experiment with those brushes to see what they do. Now I've kept them grey at this stage because I don't want to add bright colours. It can distract you from what you're trying to draw. And you'll notice that when you're adding these tones and brushes in, if you've wisely created a new drawing layer and called it tones or brushes or something like that, whatever you draw will not overwrite all your detail lines. And that's very important because you need to be able to come back and make modifications. And you can see there, during the final tone application, it's often recommended by artists that you squint your eyes from time to time so that you're not looking at the detail, and it helps to highlight the major shapes. So does it still look good when you squint? If these look right, your design is working. Remember to zoom in or out to control your layer application. Now you can see from the right hand side there that I've got grey tones, line detail, drawing layers and image layer. Each of them have groups in them because you've got more than one brush stroke. If you're colouring the grey, for example, if you don't lift your pen nib, it will all be one stroke. So you can reduce the number of strokes stored in your layer if you like by doing that. But you can see I've got different tones there and different overlays. Now again I stress, I'm not trying to do a work of art here. What I'm trying to do is show you how things are applied and the order that you keep them in. If you're very careful with ordering your detail in the layers column, it will make it very easy to come back to your image and work on it later. Now, you may not be able to see it here, it's very faint, but I've put in an horizon line. I've used a cool grey at about 70% for the background and laid the background behind the animal. Be careful and don't overdo that background until you're ready to put in the detail. The background tone is a gradient, so it doesn't detract from the image. And you can see above there, there's grey tone, But where is the tone that I've put in? I've put it in below, in a layer that I've moved below the image layer, so that it's behind everything. Now you have to be careful with this, because if you've got gaps in your drawing, your tone layer, your background layer, will be visible through the animal. You have to be careful of that. Now there we go. This has been a very brief look at creating a fantasy design from a real life shape, and I hope it's been of some help. If it has, and I'm developing more of these as we go along, they're aimed at beginners, and if you're just starting out with Designer, then I'd highly recommend working from simple designs like this to start with. If you want to be reminded when I put more up, please subscribe to my channel, my YouTube channel. Just subscribe, click the like thumbs up button as well, tick the bell, and you'll be reminded on your interface when new videos pop up. Thank you for watching.